Hello and welcome back once again to After the Credits. So a little bit of change of plans today. I was originally going to go see Valerian. Unfortunately, I misread the times on that, so when I got out of work, I'd already missed the start time for that one, and I didn't want to wait around for 2.5 hours for the next one to start. So I went and saw a different movie instead. And today I went and saw Atomic Blonde. Now, I wasn't originally going to see Atomic Blonde because it didn't really seem that interesting to me. It was just kind of another one of those secret spy action movie type of things, but this time with a female lead. And I just really had no interest in it. And then I found out that it kind of took place in the 80s, and the little bit that I watched of it at work at one point just to kind of check it out and see if it was something I'd actually be interested in to begin with. The overall 80s nostalgia, I guess, kind of kicked in, and I was like, okay, I want to see where this goes. So I went and saw it, and it's not very 80s at all. It basically takes place in Germany during the time of the Berlin Wall, when the Berlin Wall was being torn down. And for some reason, even though the Berlin Wall is coming down and the two sides of East and West Germany are going to unite, there's still this secret American spy mission to transport Eastern defectors to the West or Western defectors to the East. I forget which way it went. I think it was they were coming from the East going to the West. And it's like, just wait 2 days until the wall comes down and you'll be fine. But apparently, even though the wall was coming down, there was still a lot of background stuff going on where this whole event had to happen. So Charlize Theron's character is a spy, and she's sent in to extract the person that's trying to defect. And like right from the start, the KGB makes out who she is, so her cover's already blown. And like all this stuff keeps happening, so obviously there's a double agent somewhere, and she has to weed it out. And then it kind of like suddenly shifts to where she's giving her recollection of the story to two other people in like a debriefing type of thing. And it's like, okay, so this has all already happened, and now she's relaying it back to them, so it keeps like cutting between that and her in the flashbacks. And basically it just kind of plays out like any other spy movie does. Basically, the very first Mission Impossible movie with Tom Cruise, it's kind of that all over again. Except not as good, and takes place in Berlin. Yeah, we eventually find out who the double agent is, and it's obvious from the start who it is. And then we find out the little twist, which again was obvious from the beginning. If you've seen any movie like this before, again, Mission Impossible, if you know how that ends, it's kind of telegraphed when you watch something like this. So overall, just wasn't really that great. Didn't have that much 80s nostalgia except for a little bit of the soundtrack. But even then, they picked like horrible Euro pop songs versus like what would have been popular in America at the time. So the soundtrack was okay, but nothing to really kick in the nostalgic juices. There was a little bit of background scenery, like the way things were constructed and things back in the 80s. It's kind of like, oh, that's kind of a nice little gesture towards the 80s right there, but that's like the only thing that made this movie the 80s other than it took place during the Berlin Wall. So, yeah, overall, not really that entertaining. I actually kind of zoned out for the majority of it, so I can't really go too much in depth about it, but like I said, it's basically your kind of cookie-cutter spy film where there's a double agent and things go wrong and blah, blah, blah. So, not much else to say about that. I'll keep this one fairly short. What would I give it as far as a star rating? Probably a 2. I mean, like I said, if it was actually a decent spy film like Mission Impossible, I probably would have given it a 3 for middle of the road, but just because it was rather redundant and repetitive to other spy movies, and the whole drawing was that it took place during the 80s, and it basically had nothing of the 80s in it, it gets dropped down to a 2 for me. If you like those kind of things, maybe you'll rate it higher. I really didn't care that much for it. Like I said, I kind of zoned out for 90% of the movie, just kind of like ghost watched it to basically get the gist of what was going on. But I really didn't have to pay much attention to any of the dialogue or anything to really know what was going to happen in the movie. So if I can follow it while I'm tuned out, that, like I said, that kind of gives it a 2. Alright, so that's it for this episode. Again, as always, thank you guys for watching. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, share the video. Links are down in the description. Click the bell up there in the corner. Make sure you get notifications every time I post new content. And until next time, I'll see you after the credits.